Alright everyone, Merry Christmas Eve. It's actually snowing gently outside, which is festive, although it's supposed to be about 45 degrees later and tomorrow, so I think it's going to be a green Christmas. Actually, that might be the first one that I've seen in Vermont. I like this global warming myself. Just saying, when you're in the far north, it can be a little bit helpful. Anyway, I wanted to sort of tidy up the year with the last video I'll probably make on polls and analysis and things of that sort for 2023, because over Christmas you're not going to get any polling or anything. You'll get like one more batch before New Year's, and that's pretty much it. And what I'm seeing is a pretty stable trajectory on all ends. Number one, with Trump v. Biden. If 2024 is anything like 2023, economically, at the border, with crime, etc., the major issues that most people are paying the most attention to, I would expect the polling to roughly remain similar. I think it'll shorten up a little bit. I think it'll be closer in the end when the actual election happens. This is something that typically occurs. The person who's the underdog manages a few points towards the end. And so I think that Trump will probably lead slightly going into the election, which is really all he needs. Because as we've seen, he can be 4 points behind in aggregate polling and still manage to win. He can also come honk close to winning while being 7 points behind. I think that if that's an indicator, you've seen a move away from the liberal camp. And again, I think the biggest part is the economy and the border at this point. Foreign policy is on the back of everyone's minds, but it is still a back burner issue for a lot of people because they go to the store on a regular basis. Each time they get sticker shock, it makes them, I think, a little bit less likely to vote for Joe. So that's Trump v. Biden. And as correctly predicted, RFK Jr. and the others joining the race have not really changed the trajectory. Polling that compensates for RFK Jr., especially the only side candidate who occasionally gets a double-digit mark, that polling tacks so closely to just Trump v. Biden polling that it's effectively unchanged. It's almost a dead even how many votes he takes from Trump and from Biden. A little bit of wiggle room depending on the state's demographics, but again, I would expect that to hold. One interesting thing is that right now the GOP is actually tacking slightly ahead in congressional polling, which is not something that I had necessarily accounted for. I think the Republicans will lose the House. That would be something that I would expect. I don't know by what margin. We'll have to wait again until next year and closer to the election. But you've got a slurry of retirements, so you've got a bunch of non-incumbent positions for both the Democrats and the Republicans. There's going to be a big shake-up in the composition of the House of Representatives regardless. So that's number one. Number two, for the Senate, I would expect the Republicans to retake it. There's one caveat, though. We have to look out for the party's leadership structure to sabotage its own candidates whenever those candidates are MAGA, and there will be some of them. So you can look for more shenanigans like you had in Alaska's Senate election the last time around, where Mitch McConnell dumped $10 million into a race where both of the candidates were Republicans while ignoring other people who could have benefited, like Herschel Walker, Mehmet Oz, because of their adjacency to Trump. The RNC did screw them. It screwed Blake Masters, etc., etc. In the end, only a few of those candidates prevailed because they were starved for money. They were starved for surrogates and proxies in those states because of the RNC's own poor decision-making. Part of it was on purpose, and part of it was through sheer negligence. The Republicans have both. You've got Mitch McConnell, and then you got Kevin McCarthy. One of these people is just corrupt. The other one doesn't know what the hell he's doing and managed to get ousted from his speaker's role, and now he's decided to rage quit Congress as well. He's still, by the way, going at it with Matt Gaetz, and this is going to be the gift that keeps on giving for some time to come. So, as far as Congress, while looking at the polling, you'd believe, hey, the Republicans should maintain a narrow House majority. Historically speaking, I would not expect that. I expect it to oscillate back to the Dems, which means that if Trump is reelected, for the first couple of years, it's going to be an uphill battle for him to accomplish much. Except that there is now a court case allowing him to dip into discretionary military spending for the border, so that's the silver lining. I have a feeling he'll tackle that on day one and then form a commission on internet censorship, and if he does nothing else in his first couple of years, yeah, that's decent. That and tax reform. We'll see if the Democrats are willing to play ball. So my expectation, again, based on everything I'm seeing, and the polling remains pretty linear, you go with a 50-50 some odd going into the congressional voting, but I would expect House flips Dem, probably narrowly, and Senate flips GOP again by a seat or two. That's very helpful, considering you might have to replace Clarence Thomas in the next 4 years, just saying. As far as the direction of the country, that polling has been underwater for almost 20 years. So I wouldn't expect that to change either. Effectively, for that to really change, I'd have to expect the economy to pick up. I don't expect the economy to pick up. I think that you've definitely got a number of dark winners in a row thanks to Bidenflation. Well, unless you go into a prolonged series of deflationary steps, it's probably not going to move in a positive direction. It'll just be, hey, you keep getting sticker shock. It's just that the level of sticker shock has slowed down a little bit more than it did last year. Well, that's better than the alternative. Of course, if we were still at last year's inflation numbers, it would be effectively hyperinflation at this point. Hyperinflation light at least. Biden would be riding on 30 at that point, and he'd probably be forced by his party to stand down. There's no indicator at this point that'll happen. One more caveat, though. It is possible that Biden, who is going to get the delegates that he needs to be formally the nominee, decides at the convention to stand down and then try to handpick a successor. Stranger things have happened within politics. I'm not ruling it out. I think it's like a 90% chance that it's Biden as the nominee. There's like a 10% chance that he pulls the switcheroo at the end and tries to mint somebody else as his replacement. That's something to look out for, too. Any scuttlebutt about that from anything other than anonymous sources, because we've learned, I think, as a group of people not to trust them. That would be something interesting. So yeah, as far as the end of the year polling goes, again, basically the last slurry of polls -1, things haven't really changed in any significant sense now for many months. It's basically a holding pattern. It's very stable, actually. The only thing is that Biden has dropped off a cliff in approval. This is affecting other polling, but it doesn't necessarily trickle down fully to the congressional ballot, because that's in state. So, you know, you're voting for your state senator, for within your district, for your House representative. That's a different sampling of people. Some House districts have a better economy right now than others. Some of them are suffering more crime than others, etc., etc. And so that'll play a role. But it's not necessarily a role that is impacted on a big level by what Biden or Trump happen to do. Although you'll see the Democrats are trying to tie all Republicans to Trump, it hasn't really worked very well since, again, his own party decided to screw many of his own candidates, the ones that they probably couldn't bribe or blackmail behind the scenes. Madison Cawthorn calling, by the way. He's been vindicated. Maybe he'll run again. So that is my final summation for the polling for the year. We've got congressional polling. We've got everything under the sun. I don't expect anything over the coming couple of months to really tilt wildly in any direction. Basically, until the primaries themselves begin and heat up, you wouldn't expect anything else necessarily to perturb the polling in any considerable fashion. So waiting till Iowa, and then certainly New Hampshire and South Carolina, then things will probably start to shift. I expect that Biden will actually gain some more support. Again, unless the economy totally flatlines or something unexpected happens, and Trump to lose a little bit of that support and things to narrow up a bit, because right now Trump is leading by 3. I would expect on Election Day that will not be the case. That's about all. Peace out.